My knees hit stone hard enough to make my teeth snap together. For one breath, I was not in the long hall. I was back beneath Grey Spire's moon arch with Wolfsbane biting my throat and Cassian Vale's rejection cutting through my bones like a blade turned slow. Then the arrow screamed over my head. It buried itself in the carved ruleboard behind me. No claiming. The shaft split the word clean through. Cassian laughed. The sound dragged me back into smoke, blood, and the filthy truth of the moment. Riven had saved my life. Riven had forced me down. Both things lived in my body at once, and I hated him for making room for them there. Around me, women gasped against the stone. Some were crying. Some were too shocked to make a sound. Branka was on one knee with her spear still in hand, muttering something obscene about alpha commands and men who needed their balls removed. Sabine had fallen near the hearth, her kitchen cleaver clutched so tightly her knuckles strained. Riven stood above us. Not calm now. Controlled, yes, but not calm. His power filled the hall like a storm held behind teeth. His dark hair had come loose, strands falling across his scarred cheek. He looked at Cassian the way winter looks at exposed skin. "Get them out," he said. Not alpha voice this time. Just command shaped by urgency. Mara moved first. She came off the floor like violence given a body, blades flashing. The Grey Spire man nearest her barely had time to lift his sword before she opened his throat. Blood sprayed across the ruleboard, darkening the carved letters. Then the hall broke. Women screamed. Grey Spire surged forward. Riven met them in the centre. I had seen men fight before. I had seen Cassian train in Grey Spire's yard, all polished arrogance and clean technique. I had watched Marius's soldiers beat boys into obedience beneath banners and moonlight. Riven did not fight like that. He fought like something that had once learned rules only so he could decide when to ruin them. A Grey Spire soldier lunged for him with a wolfsbane-edged knife. Riven caught the man's wrist, turned it, and drove the blade back beneath his ribs. Another came from the side. Riven's elbow struck his jaw with a crack I felt in my own teeth. No wasted motion. No flourish. Just endings. "Move!" Mara shouted. I pushed myself up. My body resisted for 1 sick second, still shaking from the command. My wolf snarled inside me, humiliated and furious. I wanted to turn on Riven. I wanted to put my knife in Cassian's smug mouth. I wanted too many things, and the wanting almost made me useless. Then I saw Lyra. She was trapped beneath a bench near the wall, curled tight with both hands over her head. Smoke dragged low around her. A Grey Spire man stepped over a fallen chair, eyes hunting for easy prey. Not Riven. Not Mara. A woman on the floor. Of course. "Fucking coward," I breathed. I ran. The soldier saw me too late. He swung his blade wide, sloppy with confidence. I ducked under it and slammed my shoulder into his middle. We hit the table together. Pain burst through my side, but I kept hold of my knife and drove it upward. Not clean. Not pretty. The blade went into the soft place under his jaw. His body jerked. Hot blood slid over my hand. He made a wet, stunned sound, like he could not believe a woman had ruined his plans. I shoved him off me. "Believe it!" Lyra stared from beneath the bench, eyes huge. "Out!" I snapped. She did not move. I reached under, grabbed her wrist, then stopped myself before I yanked too hard. Her skin trembled under my fingers. "Lyra," I said, forcing my voice lower, "look at me." She blinked. "There. Good. You see the hearth?" She nodded once. "Crawl to it. Sabine's there. She had a cleaver and a bad temper." Sabine, from across the room, shouted, "Damn right I do!" Lyra moved. Good girl. A body slammed into the table beside me. I turned, knife ready, but it was Elise, grinning through blood at her split lip. "Still alive?" she asked. "Unfortunately for everyone." "Good." She kicked a grey spire man in the knee and laughed when it bent wrong. Across the hall, Cassian had not joined the fighting. Of course he hadn't. Cassian liked violence best when someone else sweated for it. He stood beneath the broken ruleboard, crossbow in hand, Celeste beside him. She was shaking now, truly shaking. Her red gold braid had come loose, and black wax stained her fingers. She looked at the blood on the floor as if she had expected theatre and gotten slaughter. That was the problem with betrayal. People imagined the wound, not the screaming afterward. Riven saw her too. Something passed across his face, not softness, not forgiveness, pain maybe, or recognition. Cassian noticed. His smile sharpened. "There it is, saints rogue, you do collect them tenderly." Riven took one step toward him. 3 grey spire men moved to block him. Mara intercepted one. Branka speared another through the thigh and roared, "Bleed quieter." The third reached for Celeste. Not gently. He grabbed her by the hair and yanked her backward. Celeste cried out. "Move," Cassian snapped at him. "She's useful alive." The soldier laughed. "Used goods are useful in pieces too." I did not think. That was probably why it worked. My knife left my hand. It spun once through smoke and torchlight, then buried itself in the side of his throat. The man dropped Celeste and clutched at the blade, choking. Celeste stumbled, falling hard onto one hand. Her eyes found mine. For one stupid breath, she looked grateful. I pointed at her. "Don't." Her mouth trembled. "I'm still deciding if I hate you," I said. A grey spire soldier came at me from the right. Before I could move, Riven was there. He did not touch me. He put himself between us and caught the soldier's sword on a forearm wrapped in leather. The edge bit deep. Blood ran, but Riven barely reacted. His other hand closed around the man's throat. The soldier's eyes bulged. Riven leaned close. "You entered my house." Then he threw him into the stone pillar hard enough to crack bone. My heart slammed once. Not with fear. Not only fear. Riven turned his head slightly, checking me without reaching. I hated him for that too. For knowing not to touch. For remembering while blood was on the floor. "Can you stand?" he asked. "I'm standing." That was not an answer. It's the one you get. Something almost human flickered in his eyes. Then Cassian whistled. Sharp. 2 grey spire men near the east passage threw small clay jars against the floor. They shattered. Smoke burst upward, thick and bitter with wolfsbane. Women started coughing immediately. Riven snarled, the sound deep enough to shake the torches. "Masks!" Mara shouted. Nessa appeared through the haze with cloth soaked in something sharp. "Cover mouths! Now!" The grey spire men began retreating toward the east gate. Cassian moved with them, dragging Celeste by the arm. She struggled once. He twisted until she cried out and stopped. Riven lunged. Cassian raised the crossbow again. This time, not toward me. Toward Celeste's throat. Riven froze. The hall seemed to freeze with him. Cassian smiled over Celeste's shoulder. "Ah, there's the collector." Celeste's eyes were wet and wild. She looked at Riven like she had wanted his choice, and now wished she could crawl out from under it. Cassian backed toward the smoke-filled doorway. "Bring me Flavia Underwood," he called. "Moon ruins. Dusk tomorrow." Riven's voice was deadly quiet. "If you take one more step with her." Cassian pressed the bolt against Celeste's skin. A bead of blood rose. Riven stopped speaking. Cassian's gaze slid to me. There was no bond between us anymore. He had cut it himself, but some old wound in me still knew his attention and despised it. "No mark," he said. "No bargain, no tricks. Bring the unclaimed bitch, or your little traitor loses her tongue first." Celeste made a broken sound. I should have felt satisfied. I didn't. Damn her. Damn me. The grey spire men slipped through the east gate, dragging smoke and screams with them. Mara started after them, but Riven lifted one bloodied hand. "Not blind," he said. Mara stopped, shaking with the effort. The gate slammed somewhere beyond the hall. Silence did not return. It crawled in pieces, coughing, weeping, the groans of the wounded, the crackle of fire catching along a fallen curtain. I bent and picked up a sword from a dead grey spire soldier, because my knife had left with the bastard choking on it. My hand was slick with blood. My palms burned. My knees ached from hitting stone when Riven's command had driven me down. Riven turned toward me. Smoke moved between us. His arm bled steadily onto the floor. He looked at my knees first, then my face. "Don't," I said. His mouth closed. Good. If he apologized now, I might throw the sword at him. Outside, the warning bell finally started again. One broken, panicked note after another. I looked towards the east gate where Cassian had vanished with Celeste. Then at the women crawling out from under tables, clutching wounds, dragging each other upright in the ruin of their refuge. No clever answer came to me. No sharp little blade of a sentence. Only the truth, ugly and breathing. Greyspire had entered the sanctuary. Celeste had opened the gate. Riven had saved us by violating the one thing he claimed to protect. And by dusk tomorrow, Cassian wanted me beneath another moon arch. This time, he wanted witnesses when he put the collar back on. No one said collar. I heard it anyway. It lived in the space Cassian left behind, ugly as smoke, wrapped around every throat in the hall. Women rose slowly from the stone. Some clutched wounds. Some clutched each other. Some stared at the east passage as if Greyspire might walk back through it and explain that none of this had truly happened. The fire did not care for shock. It climbed the fallen curtain and licked along the carved wall where the rules hung split by Cassian's arrow. Mara moved first. "Waterline!" That broke the room open. Women ran. Buckets scraped. Someone sobbed while carrying one. Branka shoved a spear into the hands of a trembling girl and barked, "If a man comes through that smoke, stick the pointed end in anything soft." The girl stared at her. Branka scowled. That was comfort. It was a terrible comfort, I said. It will keep her alive. I could not argue with that. I tore a hanging cloth from a broken bench and pressed it over the bleeding arm of a woman I did not know. She flinched. "Hold it there," I told her. Her eyes darted to the blood on my hands, then to my face. "Are they coming back?" "Yes," I said. She began to shake harder. I cursed myself under my breath. Nessa would have slapped the back of my head if she had hands free. So I tried again. "Not this breath," I said. "This breath you hold pressure. Next breath, you do it again. That's all." The woman stared at me like she was deciding whether I was cruel or useful. Useful won. Her hands pressed down over mine. "Good," I said. "See? Bleeding is rude, but it can be argued with." A choked laugh escaped her. I did not smile. I wanted to. That annoyed me more than the smoke. Across the hall, Riven stood near the east passage with Mara. Blood ran from the cut on his forearm and dripped steadily from his fingers. He ignored it with the arrogance of men who thought their bodies were tools they could replace when cracked. Mara did not ignore it. She caught his wrist, looked at the wound, and said something too low for me to hear. Riven pulled free. Mara's face did not change, but her jaw tightened. Good. Someone else wanted to knock sense into him. The fire was beaten down before it reached the roof beams. Smoke lingered, thick and bitter, turning every breath into work. The long hall looked smaller after violence. Tables overturned, blood smeared across the stone. The rule board split open where the arrow had struck. No claiming. Broken through the middle. My gaze stuck there. Riven's command still lived in my knees. Down. My body had obeyed before my mind even understood the word. It had saved me. It had stolen from me. The two truths sat side by side like enemies forced to share a bench. Flavia. Nessa's voice cracked through the smoke. I turned. She stood at the healer's doorway with her silver-threaded braids half fallen from their pins and blood on the front of her apron. Unless you plan to stand there making hatred decorative, I need hands. I have terrible bedside manner. I need pressure held, not poetry. I do not write poetry. Then you are already improving. I followed her. The healer's room had become a battlefield of quieter pain. Women lay on pallets and tables. One had an arrow through her shoulder, another had a slash across her thigh. Lyra sat against the wall, arms around her knees, staring at nothing. Sabine was rinsing blood from cloths in a basin and swearing at them as if the stains had offended her family. Nessa pointed at a young woman on the nearest pallet. "Hold this!" The girl was maybe 17, deep brown cheeks wet with tears. Her hands clawed at the blanket while Nessa prepared a needle. "No," the girl whispered. "No, no, no." "It has to be stitched," Nessa said. The girl shook her head wildly. I almost said, "Stop thrashing before you make it worse." The words reached my teeth. Then I swallowed them. They tasted like old habits. I sat beside the pallet and put my hand where she could see it. "What's your name?" She blinked at me. "Tavi." "Bad news, Tavi. This will hurt." Nessa shot me a look. I ignored her. "But it'll hurt less if you breathe before it happens instead of after. Count my fingers." Tavi stared at my raised hand. "What?" "Count them. If you get it wrong, I'll be insulted." "I can count." "Then prove it." Her gaze fixed on my fingers. "1," she whispered. Nessa slid the needle in. Tavi sucked in a breath. "2," I said. "2," she repeated, voice breaking. 3. By the time Nessa tied the last stitch, Tavi was crying silently, but she'd not screamed. Nessa cut the thread. Her eyes touched mine briefly. No praise. Just that look again. The one that saw too much and kept receipts. "Go wash," she said, "then help Sabine." I love being ordered while covered in other people's blood. "Then today is a feast for you." I stood. Lyra's voice stopped me. "Flavia." I looked toward the wall. She had lifted her head. Smoke had reddened her eyes. "You came back for me." The room quieted in that irritating way rooms do when everyone suddenly develops ears. I shrugged. "You were under a bench. It was embarrassing for all of us." Sabine muttered, "Gods forbid gratitude survive contact with you." But Lyra's mouth trembled into something almost like a smile. I left before anyone made the moment worse. By late afternoon, the sanctuary had counted its wounds. 2 gate watchers dead. 1 woman dead in the east air, caught before she could run. 9 injured badly enough for Nessa to curse in 3 languages. The east gate damaged. The bell rope cut. Celeste gone. Her name moved through the sanctuary like a lit coal passed hand to hand. "She opened it," someone said near the well. "She let them in." She stood beside him. She should rot with Greyspire. I was scrubbing blood from beneath my nails at the pump when the last word struck something raw. I looked up. 3 women stood by the water barrels. One of them, a narrow-faced woman with soot across her brow, noticed me watching and lifted her chin. "What?" she demanded. "You think she deserves rescue?" "No," I said. Her mouth opened, satisfied. I dried my hands slowly on my ruined skirt. "I think Greyspire does not deserve to keep her." The satisfaction died. "She betrayed us." "Yes." "She could have gotten us all killed." "Yes." "So why defend her?" "I'm not defending her." My voice stayed level, which surprised me more than it did them. "I'm defending the line. If Greyspire can take one woman from inside these walls, and we shrug because she made herself hard to love, then this place is only a sanctuary for the obedient. The woman looked away first. Good. I was tired of winning arguments that left everyone bleeding. Behind me, a floorboard creaked. I knew who it was before he spoke. Riven. Of course. He had the decency not to stand too close. His arm was bandaged now, though blood had already seeped through in a dark line. His scar looked deeper in the late light. You should be with Nessa, I said. So should you. I'm not leaking through my wrappings. No, he said. You're shaking. My spine snapped straight. I hated him. Not for seeing it. For being right. I curled my fingers into my palms until the tremor stopped. Riven watched the movement and said nothing. That was worse. The yard around us held too many sounds. Hammering at the gate, weeping from the hall, Mara giving orders from the wall walk, somewhere Branka yelling that if anyone fainted, they should do it away from the clean bandages. Riven's voice lowered. I used my command. There it was. No apology dressed in pretty clothes. Just the blade laid flat between us. Yes, I said. It saved your life. Yes. His eyes held mine. It took your choice. Yes. The word cut me more the third time. His jaw worked once. I will carry that. I laughed softly without humour. Men are always volunteering to carry what still lives in our bodies. He flinched. Not much. Enough. I should have felt pleased. I did not. I was too tired. Don't ask me to comfort you for hating what you did, I said. I won't. Don't ask me to forgive it because I'm breathing. I won't. And don't stand there pretending only one thing is true. My throat tightened, but my voice held. You saved me. You violated me. Both matter. Riven bowed his head once. Not submission. Acknowledgement. That almost broke something in me, so I looked away. A shout came from the outer path. Mara appeared at the gate arch with Tobin, one of the younger scouts, beside her. He had mud on his boots, blood at his temple, and something wrapped in cloth held away from his body like it might bite. Mara? Riven said. Her expression told us before her mouth did. Tobin stepped forward and held out the bundle. No one moved for a breath. Then Riven took it. Black wax sealed the cloth. The smell crawled up my nose, bitter and oily. Riven broke it open. A strip of red gold hair slid into his palm. Celeste's braid. The yard went silent around us. Pinned through the hair was a piece of parchment. Riven read it first. Then his eyes lifted to mine. I held out my hand. Give it to me. He hesitated. I smiled without warmth. Careful. That looked like a choice you were about to make for me. The parchment touched my palm. The words were written in a sharp, elegant hand. Moon ruins, dusk. Bring Flavia. No mark, no bargain. Below it, one more line had been added in darker ink. Or we begin with her tongue. The wind moved over the yard. Somewhere behind me, Lyra began to cry. I folded the parchment once. Then again. My hands no longer shook. That should have worried me. Riven said my name. I looked toward the broken east gate, where the road bent into the trees and disappeared in the direction of old moonstones and old wounds. Tell Mara to sharpen everything, I said. Riven's eyes darkened. Flavia. What? We are not trading you. I slid the folded message into my bodice, close enough to feel the threat against my skin. No, I said. We are not. Then I looked back at him. But we are going to get her.
Author's point of view.
We are going to get her. Flavia's words did not settle gently. They struck the yard and stayed there, sharp-edged, daring anyone to pretend they had not heard. Around her, The sanctuary held its breath. Women looked from the folded threat tucked against her blood-stained bodice to Riven's face, waiting for the collision. Riven did not move closer. That mattered. He stood with his bandaged arm bleeding through the linen and his jaw set like stone cut under pressure. The old urge to command sat behind his eyes, dark and dangerous, but he did not release it. "No one decides this in the yard," Mara said. Her voice sliced through the thick silence. Bronca snorted from beside the well. "Better than deciding it after Grayspire mails us another piece of the girl." "Hall," Mara ordered. "Now." No one argued. The long hall had been cleaned enough to hold bodies again, but not enough to hide what had happened there. The smoke had crawled into the rafters. Blood remained in the cracks between stones. The rule board still hung split by Cassian's arrow, the words "no claiming" broken down the center like a promise under strain. Women gathered beneath it anyway. Some stood with bandages wrapped around arms and throats. Some sat because standing cost too much. Nessa moved between them with cups of bitter tea and the expression of a woman willing to poison anyone foolish enough to call it weakness. Sabine leaned against a table with her cleaver still at her hip. Elise had one eye swelling shut and looked far too pleased about it. Riven remained near the front. Mara stood at his right. Flavia did not stand beside him. She took a place among the women, near the middle, shoulders squared, curls tied back with a strip of torn cloth. There was blood beneath one of her nails she had not managed to scrub out. She noticed it. She left it there. The gesture was small. Riven saw it. So did Mara. "Celeste opened the east gate," Mara said. A low hiss moved through the room. She passed messages sealed in black wax. She gave Grayspire the timing of the watch change. Without that, they would not have breached us. "Then why are we wasting breath?" snapped a woman near the hearth. "Let Grayspire keep what it bought." "She wasn't bought," Sabine said. "No, she was jealous. That is cheaper." Several women muttered agreement. Bronca lifted her bandaged hand. The missing finger on her left hand made the gesture look more like a threat than a request. She opened a gate to men who called us property. "I am old, not merciful." "No one accused you of mercy," Elise said. Bronca pointed at her. "Watch your teeth." "They're already loose." "Then I can finish the work." "Enough," Nessa snapped. The hall quieted, but anger did not leave. It only changed seats. Riven looked toward Flavia once. She did not speak. That, more than anything, unsettled the room. They expected her to strike first, to turn her tongue into a blade and make everyone bleed equally. Instead, she listened. Her gaze moved from woman to woman, not softening, not yielding, but weighing each hurt as if it deserved to be counted before she answered. A scarred woman from the laundry stood, hand pressed to her stitched side. "My sister was at the east stair. She died there. Celeste did that." "Yes," Flavia said. Every eye turned. Her voice was level. No defense, no excuse. The woman's mouth tightened. "Then say she deserves rescue." "She doesn't?" The hall shifted. Flavia stepped forward once, enough to be seen but not enough to claim the room as hers. Deserve is a pretty word men use when they want a reason to choose who gets protection. Grayspire said, "I didn't deserve mercy after Cassian rejected me." Marius said, "My debt made me sellable." My family said silence would keep them safe. Her gaze flicked briefly toward the broken rule board. "If we only save women who never break, then this place is a lie." No one spoke. Sabine's fingers loosened on the handle of her cleaver. Flavia continued, quieter now, which made the words worse. "Celeste betrayed us. Let her answer for it in front of us, not under Cassian's knife. Grayspire does not get to punish our wounded before we do. Bronca grunted. That almost sounded reasonable. I apologize. Don't. It was unsettling. A few strained laughs broke through the room. Not joy, not forgiveness. Something thinner, something necessary. The woman with the stitched side sat down slowly. Her face remained hard, but her eyes had changed. Grief still owned them, rage too, but not certainty. Riven finally spoke. We will not trade Flavia. His voice was calm. The reaction was not. A younger woman near the back whispered, Then how? Cassian's message sat on every tongue. Bring Flavia. No mark, no bargain. Mara crossed her arms. We scout the ruins, find numbers, find exits. We take Celeste if we can. We do not hand them what they want. They want me, Flavia said. Riven's stare cut to her. She met it without flinching. No, he said. One word, not alpha command. Still the air tightened. Flavia's smile had no warmth in it. You have a small vocabulary when frightened. I am not frightened. You should be. It would make you less foolish. Mara's scarred mouth twitched. Riven ignored her. You are not walking into Cassian's hands. I know Cassian's hands. The room chilled. Flavia did not look away from him. I know how he thinks. I know where Grayspire men stand during a ritual. I know the moon ruins because Marius sent girls there to scrub old blood from the stones before ceremonies. There is a servant path behind the western arch, half collapsed, but passable if you do not mind crawling through thorns. Riven's expression did not change, but something in him sharpened. You never mentioned that. You never asked me to map my nightmares. That landed harder than an insult. Nessa lowered her eyes. Riven accepted the strike without returning one. I will not use you as bait. Then don't use me. Flavia's voice rose, not in fury but in insistence. Listen to me. The difference held the hall. Even she seemed to feel it. Her hands curled once at her sides, then released. I am not asking permission to be sacrificed, she said. I am telling you I can help get Celeste out without giving Cassian what he wants. And if he changes the rules? Riven asked. He will. Men like him always do. Then we change faster. Bronca leaned toward Elise. I like her better when she aims at someone else. I heard that, Flavia said. I meant you to. The argument might have gone on until dawn if Tobin had not appeared at the hall entrance, one hand braced against the doorframe. He looked worse than he had in the yard. Mud streaked his clothes, blood had dried at his temple. His square jaw was clenched against pain, but his eyes were clear. Mara, he said, the east passage has been checked. Gate chain was cut from inside. The hall stirred again. Mara's face hardened. Celeste had the key. The small key, Tobin said, not the master. Riven went still. Flavia noticed before most did. What master? Mara answered, though her eyes stayed on Riven. Old sanctuary key. Open stores, lower passage, gate locks. Only 3 exist. One with you? Flavia said. Mara nodded. One with Riven. And the third? No one answered quickly enough. Riven turned toward the east corridor. Celeste's room. Celeste's room smelled faintly of lavender oil and smoke. No one had entered it since the attack. The bed was still made. A comb lay on the small table beside a cracked cup of tea gone cold. A red gold ribbon hung over the chair back, pretty enough to look obscene after the braid delivered to the gate. Flavia stood in the doorway first. For all her sharpness, she did not rush inside. Perhaps she was remembering Celeste's smile in the kitchen. Perhaps the letters. Perhaps the way desperation could wear another woman's face until betrayal seemed like the only door left unlocked. Mara stepped past her. Search everything. Riven remained outside the threshold. Flavia noticed that too. Afraid of disturbing her things? No. Then, she was under my protection. Flavia's expression shifted. Not soft, not kind, but less eager to wound. Protection is not the same as control. No, Riven said. It is not. For once, she did not punish him for agreeing. They searched in silence. Mara checked beneath the mattress, behind the bed frame, inside the seams of Celeste's spare dresses. Flavia opened drawers, jars, and the false bottom of a sewing box. Riven watched the corridor. Every line of him turned outward, guarding even the room of the woman who had betrayed him. It was Flavia who found the loose stone. Not because it was obvious, because the corner of the rug had been placed too carefully over it. She crouched, worked her fingers into the narrow gap, and lifted. Beneath lay 3 folded letters, a strip of black wax, and an iron key wrapped in cloth. Mara swore. Riven entered then. The air changed with him. Flavia picked up the key first. Master? Mara took it and nodded. Yes. Then Flavia opened the top letter. The handwriting was the same as the message wrapped around Celeste's braid. Sharp, elegant, certain. She read aloud. He keeps you near, because guilt is easier than love. Make him choose, and you will know what you are worth. Riven's face became unreadable. Mara took the second letter from Flavia's hand and scanned it. Her mouth flattened. This one mentions Seren. Flavia looked at Riven. A name, a ghost, a wound they had all begun circling. She opened the last letter herself. At the bottom, pressed into black wax, was a symbol, a crescent, split by a vertical blade. Riven's old pack oath. Flavia read the final line slowly. He chose power once. He will choose it again. Make him prove otherwise. The room seemed to shrink around them. Mara looked from the wax seal to Riven. Greyspire doesn't use that mark. No, Riven said. His voice had gone colder than the stone underfoot. Flavia held the letter carefully, as if the paper itself had teeth. Then Celeste wasn't the only one opening doors, she said. Riven's gaze lifted to the corridor beyond them, to the wounded sanctuary, to every shadow where trust had been hiding. No, he said, she wasn't.
No, Riven had said. She wasn't. The words followed me out of Celeste's room and into the armory, where every blade on the wall looked more honest than the people holding them. Celeste had opened the gate. Someone else had shown her where the lock was. That made the betrayal larger, uglier. It stretched beyond jealousy and wounded pride into something old enough to have teeth in Riven's past. Mara tossed me a knife. I caught it by the handle. Try not to give this one away, she said. The last man needed it more than I did. He died with it in his throat. Exactly. Mara's scarred mouth twitched, but her eyes stayed hard. We leave before dusk. Cassian expects fear. We give him speed. Riven stood near the weapon racks, silent as stone. Nessa had wrapped his arm again, tighter this time, but blood still threatened the linen. He looked at the maps spread over the table. Not at me. That annoyed me. So did wanting him to look. Say it, I told him. His gaze lifted. There it was, the argument, the fear. The locked door he kept pretending was judgment. You should not go, he said. Wrong thing. His jaw tightened. It is the true thing. No, the true thing is that you hate needing what I know. Mara made a low sound that might have been a warning or agreement. Riven did not deny it. That was becoming one of his more irritating habits. "I hate that Cassian wants you there," he said. "So do I. We finally share an opinion. He will use you. Men keep trying." I slid the knife into my belt. It has not made them clever yet. Nessa appeared in the doorway with a bundle of cloth and small glass vials clinking together. "If the two of you are finished mistaking stubbornness for strategy, take these." I took the bundle. "You speak to everyone like this, or am I special?" "You are loud. That is not the same as special." Inside the cloth were bandages, bitterroot paste, 2 small salves, and a packet that smelled sharp enough to punish the nose. "For wolfsbane," she said. "If you are cut, use the paste. If you are bitten, scream for someone with cleaner hands." Comforting. I was not aiming for comfort. Riven reached for the bundle, then stopped before his fingers touched mine. He remembered. The small pause hit harder than it should have. I handed him nothing. He accepted that too. We left by the northern path with Mara ahead, Tobin limping but determined behind her, and Seela, a quiet scout with close-set eyes and a bow nearly as tall as she was, watching the trees. Riven walked beside me but not close enough to crowd. He did not tell me to stay behind. He did not command. I hated how much I noticed. The forest between the sanctuary and the moon ruins was dense with old pine, wet leaves, and places made for ambush. Every branch seemed to reach for my hair. Every shadow wore Grey Spire's shape until I blinked and made it become bark again. No one spoke for the first mile. That was wise. Then Riven said, "The servant path you mentioned, how certain are you that it is still passable?" "Certain enough to risk Mara's temper." Mara did not turn around. "My temper is not what gets stuck in thorns." "Then I am certain enough to risk Tobin." Tobin muttered, "Honoured." The joke was thin, but it held. Sometimes that was all humour could do. Hold a thing together for one more breath. We reached the dry stream bed before Riven spoke again. "The symbol on the letter," he said. I guessed it wasn't decorative. "It belonged to my first pack." I looked at him then. His face was angled toward the trees, Scar catching the late light in a harsh line. He looked carved out of all the words he refused to say. "And Seren?" I asked. Mara's steps slowed ahead of us. Riven noticed. "Keep moving." She did. He waited until the others were far enough ahead that only the forest could listen properly. "Seren begged me not to take the oath," he said. "The air between us changed. Not colder. Sharper." "What oath?" "A dominance oath, old, forbidden in some territories, revered in others." His mouth twisted without humour. "It strengthens an alpha's command, binds a pack's obedience more tightly to his wolf." My knees remembered the long hall. Down. My fingers curled around the knife hilt. Riven saw it. He did not apologize, not with words. His eyes lowered to my hand, then away, as if he knew apology would only ask me to manage him. "Good." "For territory?" I asked. "No." He stepped over a fallen branch. "For power." There was no excuse tucked behind it, no softening, no careful little story about necessity. Just the ugly thing set down between us. I should have struck him with it. A month ago, maybe I would have. I could have said Seren's name the way Grey Spire men said mine, like a handle, something to grip while dragging someone lower. Instead, I swallowed the blade. It cut going down. "At least you did not dress it in noble clothes," I said. "I have none for it." "No," I said, "you wouldn't." He looked at me then. I wished he hadn't. There was too much in his eyes. Guilt, yes, but also restraint, not the pretty kind men performed when they wanted praise, the brutal kind, the kind that cost flesh. "Do not reach for it today," I said. His voice dropped. "I won't." I wanted to believe him. That was a dangerous want. So I looked ahead and called, "Mara, if the path has collapsed, I am blaming you." "You found it?" she called back. "Yes, but blaming you will improve my mood." The moon ruins rose from the trees like old bones. Not Gracebyre's arch. My body did not care. Stone was stone. Ritual ground was ritual ground. And old blood did not need to be fresh to stink in memory. The broken arch leaned over a circle of black rock carved with moon phases. Vines crawled through cracks where worshippers had once knelt. The western side had partly collapsed, just as I remembered, leaving a narrow servant path half hidden beneath thorn and shadow. Cassian had chosen his stage well. Celeste was bound beneath the arch. Her red gold hair had been hacked unevenly at one side, the severed braid already delivered to us like a threat wrapped in vanity. Blood marked her throat where Cassian's bolt had kissed her skin. Her hands were tied above her head to the old iron ring set in the stone. She saw us before Cassian did. Fear moved across her face first. Then shame. I had no use for either, but I understood both. Cassian stood in the ritual circle with 8 Greyspire men spread around him, too many for a clean fight, not enough to make him brave. He smiled when I stepped from the trees. "There she is." My skin crawled. Not from the words. From the memory of once wanting that voice to say my name gently. Riven emerged beside me. Cassian's smile widened. "And the rogue comes unmated and obedient. How disappointing." Riven said nothing. The air around him thickened, but he held himself still. Cassian turned his knife under Celeste's chin. "Step forward, Flavia." I stopped at the edge of the circle. "Still giving orders like anyone enjoys hearing you?" His eyes flashed. Good. Cassian liked obedience, but he loved an audience more. His men shifted, watching him watch me. He pointed the knife toward Riven. "Mark her, rogue, or admit she is still ours." The words struck the stones and crawled through them. Riven's hand flexed once. No command came. No claim. No desperate grab for ownership dressed as mercy. My throat tightened before I could stop it. I hated him for that too. For making restraint visible. Cassian noticed something pass between us, though not enough to understand it. Men like him thought silence meant weakness, because they had never survived their own mouths. He pressed the knife into Celeste's shoulder. She cried out. The sound cut clean through the air. My feet wanted to move. My knife wanted blood. But Mara was somewhere in the thorns behind the western arch, waiting for my signal. Tobin and Sella were moving around the outer stones. If I charged, Celeste died, and Cassian would win twice. So I smiled. It cost me. "Careful," I said. "If you cut her too much, you lose your only decoration." Cassian's eyes narrowed. "You always did mistake insolence for courage. And you always mistook a crowd for a spine." One of his men snorted before he could stop himself. Cassian heard it. His pride turned its head like a wolf smelling meat. "You think this is amusing?" he asked me. "No, I think it is embarrassing." His face tightened. I took one small step along the outer edge of the circle, drawing his gaze with me. "You rejected me under Greyspire's moon arch in front of half the pack. You told them I was nothing, unworthy, unwanted." His jaw worked. "Now you drag me to another arch and demand another man mark me so you can feel powerful." I tilted my head. What will Marius say when he hears you needed a rejected woman to make the rogue bleed? The Greyspire men went still. That was the thing about men raised in packs like Greyspire. Shame did not need to be true to wound. It only needed witnesses. Cassian stepped away from Celeste. Only one step. Enough. A shadow dropped from the western arch. Mara hit the nearest guard like judgment. Steel flashed. Blood followed. Sella's arrow took the man beside Celeste through the eye. Tobin lunged from the broken servant path and cut the rope binding Celeste's wrists. Riven moved. Not like a man. like the forest had given its darkness hands. He crossed the circle and caught a grey spire blade before it reached Mara's back. His bandaged arms split open under the force, but he drove the man down with a sound that made every wolf inside everybody remember fear. Cashin cursed and grabbed Celeste. I got there first. I slammed my shoulder into him hard enough to knock his knife wide. He caught my braid cloth and yanked, pain snapping across my scalp. I drove my elbow into his throat. He choked, but his hand found the small wolfsbane blade at his belt. "Still fighting dirty?" he rasped. "You taught me." He swung towards Celeste. She was on her knees, half free, too slow from blood loss and terror. I shoved her aside. The blade grazed my ribs. Fire opened under my skin. Not normal pain. Wolfsbane pain. It burned cold and hot at once, sinking teeth deep enough to make my wolf recoil with a furious whine. My knees buckled. Celeste caught my arm. Of all people. Her fingers trembled around me. "You're cut." I noticed. "You pushed me." "Do not make it sentimental." Riven's head snapped toward us. He felt it somehow, smelled it, saw the way my body fought to stay upright. For one terrible second, power gathered in him. The old command. The oath. I saw the temptation cross his face, fast and brutal. End it. Control it. Save everyone. My breath came sharp. "Riven," I said. Not pleading. Warning. His eyes met mine across the blood-marked stones. The power stopped rising. He chose against it. Then Mara was between us and Cassian, blades up, forcing him back with a snarl that made even him retreat. Sella loosed another arrow. Tobin dragged Celeste fully to her feet. "Move!" Mara shouted. We ran for the servant path. Celeste stumbled twice. I caught her once and regretted it when the wolfsbane graze screamed through my side. Riven reached toward me, stopped, then put his hand on the stone beside my shoulder instead, blocking a thrown blade with his body, rather than touching me without permission. Madness. Decency. Both. We burst through the thorns into the trees as Greyspire shouted behind us. Celeste leaned hard against me, breath breaking. "I'm not saving you because I forgive you," I hissed. "I know. I'm saving you because Greyspire doesn't get another woman." Her eyes filled, but she swallowed whatever useless apology rose in her throat. Good. We crashed downhill through brush and shadow, the ruins disappearing behind us. The wolfsbane burned with every step. Celeste's hand tightened around my sleeve. "The letters," she whispered. "Later." "No." Her voice shook. "Listen." I glanced back. Riven and Mara were holding the rear. Steel rang somewhere behind the trees. Celeste's lips brushed near my ear. The letters didn't come from Greyspire. My blood chilled beneath the wolfsbane fire. Then who sent them? Celeste looked at me, terror cutting through shame. "Someone who knew Seren." Celeste's whisper struck harder than the wolfsbane. For one stupid breath, I forgot the fire in my side, forgot the trees clawing at my skirt, forgot Cassian's men crashing somewhere behind us like angry boars with blades. Then my body remembered the pain and nearly folded around it. Celeste gripped my sleeve. "Flavia!" "Run first," I snapped. "Haunt me with dead women later." Her mouth shut. Good. If she started explaining in the middle of a forest while Greyspire chased us, I might let the thorns take her. Mara cut through the brush ahead, black leather streaked with blood that did not all belong to her. Tobin limped behind her, jaw locked, one hand pressed to his ribs. Sella moved like a shadow between trees, turning every few breaths to loose an arrow at whatever followed too closely. Riven stayed behind us. I could feel him there without looking. Not because of a bond, not because of some romantic nonsense women were fed before being sold into ceremonies and collars. Because danger has weight. And so did he. A Greyspire shout rose behind us. Sella stopped, drew, fired. The shout broke into a wet sound. "Move," she said. I moved. The wolfsbane greys burned through my ribs until each breath became a negotiation. Celeste stumbled again. I caught her again because apparently today I had lost my senses along with some blood. "If you fall," I hissed, "I will drag you by whatever hair Cassian left." "I believe you." "You should." Her laugh came out ragged and almost a sob. I hated it less than I wanted to. By the time the sanctuary walls rose through the trees, night had begun pressing itself into the sky. The gate opened only after Mara gave 3 low whistles and 1 sharp knock against the outer post. Good. Someone had listened. Someone had changed the signals after the breach. The women on the wall saw Celeste first. That was when the silence came. Not peace. A blade before it dropped. We stepped through the gate with mud to our knees, blood drying on our clothes, and Celeste leaning between Tobin and me like a prisoner no one had decided whether to save or execute. Branka stood near the inner yard with a spear in hand and bandages wrapped around one shoulder. Her eyes went to Celeste, then to the blood on my side. "She cut you?" Branka demanded. "No." "She opened the gate?" "Yes." "Then let me simplify the matter." Branka lifted the spear. I stepped in front of Celeste. The yard tightened. My side screamed at the movement, and I nearly cursed loud enough to wake every god still pretending to sleep. "Not while she's bleeding," I said. Branka's gaze narrowed. "Are you defending her now?" "No, I am preventing us from becoming Greyspire with better lighting." That landed badly. Good. Truth should bruise. Behind Branka, women gathered. Some wore bandages, some held knives. Some had lost friends in the hall hours ago and were looking at Celeste with the kind of grief that wanted a throat to close around. Celeste bowed her head. That made several of them angrier. "Look at us," Sabine said from the steps. Celeste lifted her face. Sabine's cleaver hung at her hip. Her close-cropped curls were dusted with ash, and fury sat in every line of her body. "You do not get to hide inside shame. Shame is soft. What you did was not." Celeste swallowed. "I know." "No," Branka said. "You do not." Mara turned to Riven. "She needs to be locked in the lower room until morning." Celeste flinched. Riven said nothing. I looked at him then. He stood just inside the gate, blood soaking through the bandage on his arm again, shoulders held too still. He was looking at Celeste, but not with hatred. That would have been easier to watch. No, Riven looked at her the way a man looks at a wound he thinks his hand made. His sanctuary breached. His women hurt. His past dragged through black wax. His refusal to claim turned into a weapon. He was carrying every scream in the yard, as if each one had been carved from his own ribs. The sight did not soften me. It irritated me. A man could drown in guilt and still leave others to mop the floor. "Nessa first," I said. Mara's eyes cut to me, then locked. "Then guarded," I corrected. "Locked doors did not save us last time." A murmur moved through the women. Mara held my stare for 3 heartbeats. Then she nodded once. "Guarded!" Branka spat to the side. "I volunteer." "No," I said. Her brows rose. "You want to kill her." "I said I volunteer." "Exactly." Elise, leaning against the well with one eye swollen nearly shut, snorted. "I'll sit outside the door." "You," Branka barked, "you'll fall asleep." I'll bite myself awake. That is not how discipline works. It has worked so far. The argument loosened something in the yard, not forgiveness, nothing so clean. But movement returned. Nessa appeared at the healer's doorway and took one look at us before swearing. "Inside," she ordered. "All of you. If anyone bleeds on my threshold and then stands there discussing justice, I will stitch their mouth shut." Celeste went first. I followed because my body had become a traitor with ambitions. The healer's room smelled of bitter herbs, smoke, and blood scrubbed badly from stone. Celeste sat on a low cot while Nessa examined the cut along her shoulder. She did not cry. That annoyed me too. Tears would have given everyone something familiar to hate. Instead, she sat with her hands curled in her lap and accepted each touch like she believed pain was the only honest language left. I stood by the wall, pressing cloth to my side. Nessa glanced at me. "Sit. I'm enjoying the architecture." "Sit before I remove something you value." "I value very little." "Then it will be easy to choose." I sat. Celeste looked at me. "I'm sorry." "No." Her lips parted. I leaned forward, and the motion sent wolfsbane fire licking up my ribs. I refused to show it more than a clenched jaw. "Do not ask me to forgive you while your blood is still on the sheets," I said. "Heal first, then we'll decide what kind of woman you are when you're not desperate." Celeste stared at me. So did Nessa. "What?" I snapped. Nessa returned to her bandages. "Nothing." "You have a look." "I have several. You've earned the quieter one." "I hate that one most." "Good." Celeste lowered her eyes, but this time it was not hiding. It looked more like holding herself together with both hands. "I wanted him to choose me," she whispered. "I know. I thought if Greyspire came for you, he would finally—" She stopped, breath shaking. "I thought I could make his restraint break." The room chilled around those words. I thought of Riven at the ruins, power rising in him like a storm he could have become. I thought of him stopping because I said his name. I thought of Cassian demanding a mark. Ownership dressed as protection. Mercy with teeth. "You nearly did," I said. Celeste's face twisted. No one comforted her. That was enough mercy. Nessa was pulled away before she could tend my side. An arrow wound had reopened in the next room, and someone began vomiting black from smoke and bad herbs. Nessa left with a curse, one hand already reaching for her needle kit. Riven appeared in the doorway a few moments later. Of course he did. He carried a bowl of clean water, cloth, and the wolfsbane paste Nessa had packed. His bandaged arm had been wrapped again, but he moved like pain was merely an inconvenience sent by someone he disliked. "No," I said. He stopped. I had not meant to say it that quickly. His face gave nothing away. "Nessa sent me." "Nessa has poor judgment when busy." "She said you would say that." I hate when women become predictable in ways that make me look foolish. Riven set the bowl on a stool near the cot. He did not come closer. The space between us felt full of every command he had not used. "I can call Sabine," he said. "She'll pour vinegar on it and tell me I deserve it." She might. I respect that. A silence opened. My side throbbed. His eyes dropped once to the cloth pressed against my ribs, then returned to my face. He did not pretend not to smell the wolfsbane, did not pretend I was not sweating through the pain. "I need to clean it," he said. "May I?" The question was small. It should not have been. Men had asked my father what I was worth, Marius what debt I carried, Cassian what use I had left. No one had asked whether my skin belonged to me before touching it. I hated that one question could make my throat tighten. So I made my voice flat. "You can." Riven knelt in front of me. Not because he was mine, not because I had won, because the wound was low, and he refused to loom over me while handling it. That mattered. I wished it did not. I lifted the torn edge of my blouse enough for him to see the graze. His hand paused before contact. "Tell me if I hurt you." "You will." His mouth tightened. "Tell me if you need me to stop." That was different. So I nodded. The first touch of wet cloth dragged a hiss through my teeth. The wolfsbane had left an ugly line across my side, raised and dark-edged, the skin around it hot and angry. Riven cleaned it with careful hands. Too careful, maybe. Like he was afraid the wrong pressure would become another sin. I do not regret asking about Seren, I said. His hands stilled. The room seemed to stop with it. I know, he said. I regret how I asked. His eyes lifted to mine. There it was. The cost. Not in him. In me. Apologies felt too much like kneeling if a person had spent her life being shoved downward. I had to remind myself this was not that. This was standing up inside my own damage and refusing to let it steer every blade. I used her name like a knife, I said. I won't pretend I didn't. Riven's voice was rougher when he answered. You are angry. I am often angry. That does not make every wound I cut righteous. He looked at me for a long moment. Then he bowed his head, not deep, not dramatic, just enough to accept what I had placed between us. Thank you, he said. I did not do it for gratitude. No, he said, you wouldn't. The corner of my mouth almost moved. Almost. He spread the paste over the graze. This time I did curse. Loudly. From the next room, Nessa shouted, If you are alive enough to swear, you are alive enough to be useful later. I hope your tea curdles, I called back. It already has. I served it anyway. Riven's breath changed. Not laughter. Something near it. It left faster than it came. Before either of us could decide what to do with that, Celeste spoke from the cot across the room. There was one more line. I turned. She had woken, or perhaps never slept at all. Her eyes were open, fixed on the ceiling as if the words were written there. Riven rose slowly. What line? He asked. Celeste looked at him then, and fear moved through her face. Greyspire shouldn't know what was in those letters, she said. They knew things about Seren, about the oath, about the night she died. Riven went still. I felt the air tighten around him. Celeste's voice dropped to a whisper. The final letter said... She swallowed. It said the sanctuary is built on Seren's grave. No one breathed. Not even me. Then, from somewhere deep beneath the healer's room, an old stone gave a low, answering creak. The stone beneath the healer's room creaked again. Not like a house settling. Like something below us had shifted its weight. Celeste stopped breathing. Riven turned toward the floor. Nessa came out of the next room with a bloody thread still looped around one finger and murder in both eyes. If this sanctuary has decided to collapse tonight, she said, it can wait its turn. The floor gave another low groan. Mara appeared in the doorway with a blade already in hand. Everyone out. No, Riven said. Mara looked at him. That was not a suggestion. There is a lower passage beneath this room. Of course there was. Secrets beneath secrets. Graves beneath floors. Men built entire lives that way, and then acted surprised when women learned to listen under doors. Celeste pulled the blanket tighter around herself. I didn't know. Didn't ask, I said. Her mouth closed. Nessa pointed at me. You, stay seated. I am wounded, not decorative. You are bleeding through my good linen. It was ugly linen. Riven's gaze cut to my side, and for one breath I thought he might step toward me. He did not. He looked at Nessa instead. Keep her here. I laughed once. It hurt. Try making that sound less like a command next time. His jaw tightened. Good. Let it. Mara's eyes moved between us. Flavia comes with me. Nessa made a disgusted sound. Wonderful. Let the woman with wolfsbane in her blood crawl through old stone because none of you have learned sense. I'll crawl neatly, I said. Bleed neatly too. I stood before my body agreed with the decision. The room tilted once, then remembered I was not in the mood. Riven noticed. So did Mara. Neither offered a hand. They were learning. The lower passage opened behind a shelf of dried herbs and cracked jars. Nessa pulled the shelf aside with the weary violence of a woman who had wanted to throw it at someone for years. Behind it, a narrow stair disappeared into black. Mara handed me a lantern. "Hold this." "Because I look trustworthy?" "Because if you fall, the light goes with you and I'll know." Warm. I try. The air below smelled of damp stone, old smoke, and something bitter that sat at the back of the tongue. Not wolfsbane, wax. Black wax. Mara smelled it too. Her expression went still. The stairs ended in a passage barely tall enough for Riven's shoulders. He had stayed above after one look from Nessa and one colder look from Mara. I was grateful for that and annoyed to be grateful. The wall stones were older than the sanctuary, different cut, rougher. Some carried half-worn carvings beneath the moss, moon marks, old pack runes, things someone had tried to bury by building a refuge over them. "Seren's grave," I said quietly. Mara walked ahead. "Maybe a metaphor." "Do you believe that?" "No." Neither did I. We found the first black wax smear at the bend where the lower passage split toward the east gate. It had been rubbed along the wall near nose height, then scraped badly away. Mara touched it with the back of her knife. Wax mixed with bitterroot ash. To hide scent. And confuse it, makes every trail smell dead. Charming. Effective. I leaned closer, and the lantern lifted. The wax had caught in a crack shaped like a nail mark. Celeste didn't know enough for this. No. She opened the gate. Yes. But someone laid the path. Mara looked at me. Yes. Anger rose in me, familiar as a blade hilt, but it did not have one clear throat to cut, and that made it worse. Celeste had betrayed us out of want. This was colder, planned, patient, the kind of betrayal that did not shake after. We followed the passage to a rusted iron wheel built into the wall below the east gate. Mara crouched beside it and set the lantern low. The chain above had been cut from inside, just as Tobin said, but the wheel mechanism had also been loosened, not broken, prepared. Mara's face hardened. Could Greyspire have done that? I asked. Not without standing here for an hour. Celeste? She did not know this passage existed. I believed that. Celeste had many sins, but she was not a good liar under pain, and downstairs her terror had been too immediate to be rehearsed. Mara rose. Whoever helped her knew the bones of this place. I looked up through the gate stones. Somewhere above us, women were guarding walls with shaking hands and borrowed knives, trusting that the sanctuary still had more strength than secrets. Then we start with everyone who knows the bones, I said. Mara glanced at me. You're easier to work with when you stop trying to bite the room. The room usually deserves it. Sometimes. She stepped closer, close enough that the lantern caught the scar twisting her mouth. Not always. I had a reply ready. Several, in fact. Good ones. Sharp enough to draw blood and make me feel less seen. I swallowed them. Mara noticed that too. Do not look proud, I said. I would never. You are doing it with your eyebrows. My eyebrows are disciplined. They are smug. She turned away before I could see whether she smiled. We searched the old storage passage next. Most of the crates held winter cloth, cracked shields, spare hinges, and sacks of grain that mice had treated as a personal inheritance. But one shelf near the lamp oil stores had been moved recently. Dust told on everything if a person knew how to shame it. Behind the shelf, Mara found a scrap of black-stained cloth and a narrow strip of paper burned at one end. Only 3 words remained. Make him choose. I stared at them until the letters blurred. That phrase again, Mara said. Celeste was never the point. No, she was a lever. I thought of Riven's face when Cassian cut Celeste, the storm gathering behind his eyes, the way he had almost reached for the thing that killed Seren. A lever. A test. A trap built out of women's wounds because men had never lacked imagination when cruelty was the work. A small sound came from the far end of the storage hall. Mara's blade lifted. "Come out," she said. Silence. Then a young voice, thin as thread. "Don't cut me." Lyra stepped from behind a stack of empty barrels. She looked smaller than she had in the long hall when I dragged her from under the bench. Her braids were tied badly at the nape of her neck, and one sleeve hung torn from shoulder to wrist. Her hands were clenched so tightly the knuckles stood out. Mara lowered the blade. "Why are you down here?" Lyra looked at me, not Mara. That alone told me this would cost her. "I saw someone," she whispered. "When?" I asked. "Before the attack, near the bell rope." Mara went very still. The bell rope had failed during the breach. No warning had sounded until Greyspire was already in the hall. Lyra's gaze dropped. "I thought it was Celeste." "Was it?" "I don't know." Fear crawled over her face, but she did not run from the question. I wanted to snap, wanted to ask why she had hidden this while women bled and gates burned. The words came easily. Too easily. Nessa's voice returned in my head. "If you swing it at every hand reaching for you, don't act shocked when people stop reaching." I hated old women with good aim. I set the lantern on a crate between us. "You were scared," I said. Lyra blinked. I almost did too. "You were scared," I repeated. "That does not make you useless. Tell me what you saw." Her throat worked. Mara said nothing, which was the closest she came to praise. Lyra took a breath. Tall, hood up, walked like they knew where not to step. Not Celeste, I think. Celeste moves fast when she's nervous. This one didn't. "Man or woman?" Mara asked. "I don't know." "What else?" I asked. "A smell, rain and iron." Lyra frowned. "And smoke, maybe, not kitchen smoke." "Forge?" Mara asked. "Maybe." There were not many people in the sanctuary who worked the forge, fewer still who had access to the bell rope, gate passages, and old keys. Mara's jaw tightened. I looked toward the stairs. "We need the master key list." "I know it." "Of course you do." "My life is happier when I assume everyone will fail basic record keeping." "I'm beginning to understand you." "That sounds unfortunate." Lyra made a tiny sound. Not laughter exactly, but close enough. I looked at her. "Go to Nessa. Tell no one else what you saw." "What if they ask?" "Tell them I frightened you." "That's true." "Good. Lies work better with bone in them." She nodded and slipped back toward the stairs. Mara watched her go. That was almost kind. "Insult me again, and I'll start biting the room." The east gate hinge was the last place we checked, because obvious things liked to wait until a person was tired enough to hate them. The hinge had been repaired after the breach, but fresh iron could not hide old stone. Mara scraped soot from beneath the lower bracket. I held the lantern low, my side pulsing with every heartbeat. At first, I saw only scratches. Then the shape formed. A crescent split by a vertical blade. The same symbol stamped into the black wax. The old oath mark. Mara did not curse this time. That was worse. She stood and sent Tobin for Riven. He came despite Nessa's protests, moving slower than usual but with that same controlled danger wrapped around him. His bandaged arm was tied against his side. His eyes found the carving before anyone spoke. For a moment, he was not in the sanctuary. He was somewhere else, years back, standing in whatever place had taught him that power could be worth a mate's death. Mara's voice was low. "What does it mean?" Riven touched nothing. His face closed like a door barred from the inside. "It means," he said, "someone from my first pack is inside these walls." Above us, the warning bell began to ring. Above us, The warning bell began to ring. Mara was moving before the second strike. Riven took one step after her, then stopped, as if the sound had hooked itself beneath his ribs. The bell rang again, not the frantic pattern of breach, not the rolling alarm of fire. 3 hard strikes. A pause. 3 again. Mara looked up the stairwell. Interior threat. I looked at the oath mark carved beneath the hinge. Seems accurate. Riven's gaze stayed on the symbol. The lantern light caught the old carving and made the crescent look like a wound that had never closed. Go, he said. Mara's mouth tightened. You first. That was not a request. The air sharpened. My fingers went to my knife. Riven felt it. His eyes cut to mine, and the command died before it fully formed. Not gone, never gone, but leashed. Good. I hated that I knew what it cost him. I will follow, he said, rougher. Mara held his stare long enough to make her point, then turned for the stairs. I took the lantern and climbed after her, keeping one hand pressed to my side where the wolfsbane grey still burned like a small private hell. The sanctuary above was no quieter than the passage below. Women moved through the yard with blades, broom handles, kitchen knives, anything that made their hands feel less empty. Sabine stood near the long hall doors with a cleaver and a look that promised bad endings. Branka had somehow acquired 2 spears and was loudly accusing everyone of standing incorrectly. Feet apart, she barked at Lyra. You want to be knocked over by a breeze? I'm trying, Lyra said. Try with knees. The bell rope hung from the tower arch, still swinging. Elise stood beside it, one swollen eye narrowed, jaw set hard. Mara crossed the yard. Report. Elise pointed toward the guard walk. Rook found the lower hinge marked. I rang the interior threat. Mara glanced at me. I lifted the lantern. We found the same mark under the east gate. The yard went still in pieces. First the women nearest us, then the ones behind them. Stillness travelled faster than fire when fear carried it. Riven emerged from the passage last. No one spoke his name. They looked at him anyway. That was worse. A sanctuary full of women who had trusted his walls now stared as if the stones themselves had learned to lie. Riven accepted it without flinching. No one leaves in pairs smaller than 4. No one enters the lower passages without Mara or me. The bell rope remains guarded, food stores are watched, gate keys are counted again. Branka spat near the dirt. And the traitor? We find them, Mara said. When? When they breathe wrong, I said. Several eyes turned to me. I had not meant to speak. Or perhaps I had. My anger had begun choosing its targets with better aim, but it still liked to arrive before invitation. Someone inside these walls helped Greyspire, I said. Someone wanted Celeste desperate, the gate open, and Riven reaching for whatever old power that symbol means. They have waited this long. They can wait one more night. We cannot afford to panic faster than they planned. Sabine stared at me. That almost sounded sensible. I'll insult someone soon. Balance will return. A few women exhaled, not laughter, not trust. Enough. Riven's gaze rested on me for one breath too long. Then he looked away. Mara, secure the yard. Mara nodded. He turned toward the north walk. I followed because I had questions and an injury, and both made me unpleasant when ignored. He did not slow until we reached the old watchroom above the armory. The shutters were open, night pressed close beyond them, thick with pine and smoke from the damaged gate torches. Riven stood with his back to the room. That symbol, I said. You knew it before tonight. Yes. And you planned to tell no one until it climbed out of the stones and bit us. His shoulders shifted once, not quite a sigh. He was too disciplined for easy exhaustion. I hoped it was buried. Men say that about anything they do not want women digging up. He turned then. The scar along his face looked deeper in the torchlight. So did the shadows beneath his eyes. You are right. That robbed me of the first 3 cruel things waiting on my tongue. I resented him for that. What was the oath? I asked. Riven looked toward the yard below. A dominance oath. I heard that part. Try the version that admits blood. His jaw worked. Then he spoke. I was young. My claim to the pack was challenged before I had the strength to hold it cleanly. There were elders who wanted me leashed, rivals who wanted me dead, men who called restraint weakness before I understood restraint at all. That sounds dangerously close to an excuse. It is context. Context often wears an excuse's coat. His eyes met mine. I chose power. The words settled between us. Hard, undressed. The oath bound my command to the pack's spine, he continued. Every wolf beneath me felt me more sharply. Obedience became easier for them and more tempting for me. It made my voice law in ways an alpha's voice should never be. My body remembered the long haul. Down, the arrow passing over my head. My knees were striking stones because he had made them. He saw the memory cross my face. I used a shadow of it in the hall, he said. Not the full oath, but enough. It saved my life. Yes. It also took my body from me. His throat moved. Yes. We stood with that. No apology this time. No demand that I soften the shape of what he had done because the result had kept me breathing. Both things were true. Truth rarely cared whether it was convenient. And Seren? I asked. The name changed him. Not dramatically. Riven did not fall apart for anyone's comfort, but something behind his eyes went somewhere I could not follow. She was my mate before I became Alpha, he said. She knew what the oath would do, better than I did. Her mother had been oath-bound under another pack's tyrant. Seren understood the old rites. She told me the dominance oath would put my wolf above the mate bond. A coldness moved through me that had nothing to do with night. She begged you not to take it. Yes. And you did. Yes. No defense, no polished grief. Just the blade offered handle first because there was no clean way to hold it. What happened? Riven looked down at his hands. They were still. That seemed wrong. Hands that had killed, built, buried, saved. Hands should not look so calm while confessing. The oath fed on loyalty, he said, on fear, on obedience, on anything binding one wolf to another. The strongest bond near me was Seren's. My stomach tightened. I felt it break, he said. His voice did not shake. That made it worse. She collapsed during the final rite. I thought she had fainted. I thought... He stopped. His mouth hardened around whatever foolish hope had lived there once. By morning the mate bond was dead. By dusk, so was she. I wanted to say something cruel. Not because he deserved cruelty. Because cruelty was easier than standing beside horror and doing nothing with my hands. Seren begged too. He did not kneel then. The traitor's words from the ritual to come had not happened yet, but the shape of them seemed already waiting in the walls. Riven lifted his eyes. I did not strike her, he said. I did not order her death, but I chose the thing that killed her. There it was. No room left for a pretty misunderstanding. No villain simple enough to hate without thought. I stepped back because I needed the distance, because some truths had weight, and mine was still learning how not to crush everything beneath it. Thank you for telling the truth, I said. His face changed almost not at all. Almost. I hate it, I added. I know. No, you don't. My voice stayed low. That surprised me. I hate that you did it. I hate that you built a refuge out of guilt and called it protection. I hate that you understand cages because you once held the key. And I hate that when power rose in you today, you stopped. His eyes held mine. I wished he would look away first. He did not. That part makes you hard to despise, I said. Riven said nothing. Good. If he had thanked me for that, I might have thrown the lantern. I turned and left him in the watchroom with his old oath, his dead mate, and the night listening through the shutters. Nessa found me near the herb court. Of course she did. The woman had the instincts of a crow and the patience of bad weather. "You are bleeding again," she said. "Wonderful greeting. It is the one you keep earning." I leaned against the stone wall and pressed my hand tighter to my side. The burn had dulled, which I trusted less than pain. Pain at least had the decency to announce itself. Nessa came closer, but did not touch me without warning. Another thing I had begun noticing against my will. "May I look?" she asked. "Everyone has manners tonight. It's unsettling." "Answer." "Yes." She lifted the edge of the bandage and examined the wound with narrowed eyes. "You walked too much." I was busy discovering men's pasts buried under our floor. "Our floor," she said. I frowned. "What?" "You said our." I was speaking loosely. I dislike that sound. You dislike most sounds that mean someone noticed you. I looked out toward the yard, where women moved through torchlight in groups of 4. Sabine was showing 2 younger girls how to hold kitchen blades without slicing their own thumbs. Branka had taken over spear instruction with the tenderness of a thrown brick. Celeste's window glowed faintly above the healer's room, watched by Elise from a chair outside the door. Our floor. Damn Nessa. "I keep waiting for him to become simple," I said. Nessa tied the bandage again, more firmly this time. "And?" "He won't." "No." "He did a monstrous thing." "Yes." "He is trying not to become it again." "Yes." I hate when truth has too many sides. Nessa's mouth curved a little. "Then stop trying to flatten it with your anger." I gave her a look. "Do you practice these speeches?" "I live with wounded women. I have material." Before I could answer, the outer bell struck once. Not an interior threat. A gate call. Every woman in the yard froze. Mara appeared from the long hall steps. Riven came down from the watchroom at the same time, face closed again, the confession sealed behind his eyes. Tobin ran in from the lower road, mud up to his knees and a scroll tube clutched in one hand. "Messenger," he called. "Greyspire colours." He left it tied to the boundary post and ran before Sela could decide whether his leg deserved an arrow. "Sela has discipline," Mara said. She was disappointed. Riven took the scroll. The seal bore Greyspire's mark pressed into dark red wax. My name was written beneath it. Not carefully. Possessively. Riven broke the seal. He read in silence. Then his eyes lifted to mine. "No," I said. "Do not look at me like that. Read it." The women gathered closer, drawn by dread and fury. Riven's voice carried across the yard. "By order of Alpha Marius Vale of Greyspire, the settlement calling itself Sanctuary is declared unlawful under Pack Compact. No rogue Alpha may harbour rejected females, debt-bound females, oath-escaped females, or unmarked property belonging to a recognised pack." The yard became very quiet. Riven continued. "Riven of no sworn territory is granted until the next moonrise to present Flavia Underwood either legally claimed under his mark or surrendered to Greyspire custody. Refusal will be taken as rebellion against pack law, and neighbouring alphas will be summoned to enforce claim." My heartbeat did not quicken. It hardened. Riven read the final line, and every word dropped like a collar locking shut. No alpha may shelter unmarked property. No one moved. Then Branka whispered, vicious and clear, "Property." The word spread through the yard without being repeated. Riven lowered the message. His eyes found mine again. This time, I did not look away. Because Greyspire had not only sent a challenge to him, they had sent one to every woman behind that gate.
Author's point of view.
Riven lowered the message. His eyes found Flavia across the yard. but this time she did not feel like the only woman named in it. Property. The word had landed on every shoulder behind the gate. Sabine's hand closed around the cleaver at her hip. Branka's mouth twisted as if she wanted to spit again and had run out of dirt worthy of it. Lara stood near the well, one hand still wrapped around the practice knife Branka had shoved at her earlier, trembling but not dropping it. Riven folded the parchment once. "We answer by moonrise," he said. "No," Flavia said. The word cut clean through the yard. Riven looked at her. So did everyone else. Flavia stepped forward, the bandage at her side pulling beneath her blouse. Pain sharpened her voice, but it did not own it. "You do not answer this alone." A muscle worked in Riven's jaw. Greyspire addressed it to me. "They addressed my body to you," she said. "That does not make it your decision." The yard went still again, but differently this time. Not fear. Attention. Nessa, standing beside the healer's door, gave one sharp nod. The women meet. Mara's gaze moved over the gathering. Long hall, no men inside. Tobin, near the gate, frowned. "I am barely standing." "Then barely stand outside," Branka snapped. No one laughed. But something moved through the women. A breath, a decision beginning before anyone admitted it. Riven did not argue. That mattered, though Flavia hated that she noticed. He only said, "Take the hall." Flavia lifted her chin. "We were going to." The long hall still carried the attack in its bones. The tables had been scrubbed. The worst of the blood had been sanded from the floor. Smoke marks climbed the beams where Greyspire's firepots had burst. Above the hearth, the carved sanctuary rules were darkened at the edges. No claiming. No forcing. No locked doors without consent. No woman returned. Women filled the benches, the walls, the floor near the hearth. Some were wounded. Some were angry. Some were too frightened to pretend otherwise. Mara stood near the doors with her arms folded, but she did not command. Nessa sat beside the hearth, needle case still tucked into her belt. Branka had taken a place on a table as though it were a war throne. Flavia remained standing. She did not know when that had become expected of her. At first everyone spoke at once. "We should leave before the packs come." "And go where?" "Greyspire will burn the trees." "Riven should mark her." Flavia's eyes cut toward the speaker. The woman who had said it, a narrow-faced seamstress with a bandaged wrist, flinched, but did not take the words back. "I do not mean force," she said quickly, "but if she agreed—" "If I agreed while every pack and reach sharpens knives outside the gate?" Flavia asked. The seamstress looked down. Sabine spoke from the wall. "Fear makes poor consent." "Fear makes everything poor," Branka muttered, "except aim sometimes." Another woman said, softer, "If Flavia went back, would they leave us?" The shame in the question made it worse. Flavia turned toward her. The old Flavia would have struck fast, would have made the woman bleed for daring to weigh her life against a gate. Instead, she looked at the woman's shaking hands. The woman was not Greyspire. She was not Cassian. She was not Marius Vale counting debt marks on a daughter's skin. She was scared. Flavia swallowed the first cruel thing that came. "No," she said, "they would not leave you." The woman's eyes filled, but she nodded. Flavia looked around the hall. "I am not sorry for surviving loudly," she said. Silence gathered. She forced herself to keep going. "But I know I have made some of you bleed from the wrong side of my anger." Nessa's gaze lowered, not in pity, in respect. Flavia hated how much that steadied her. I will not kneel for Grayspire, she continued. I will not let Riven mark me because frightened men wrote the word property on parchment and called it law. If I go back, every pack learns this place can be bought with one woman's body. Sabine pushed away from the wall. Flavia's voice hardened. So no, I am not going back, and no one here is being marked to keep men comfortable. Branka struck the butt of her spear against the floor. There, sense at last. This time, a few women did laugh. Small, ragged, alive. Mara moved to the nearest table and unrolled a rough map of the sanctuary. Then we plan. Flavia stepped beside her. No one told her not to. They began with escape routes. Not grand ones, not heroic ones, useful ones. Flavia pointed to the bathhouse drain path first. Too narrow for armored men. Children and the injured go there if the east side burns. Sabine marked it with a coal stub. Kitchen girls know that way. Then they lead, Flavia said, not follow. Lyra straightened near the hearth. Branka grunted. Signal knocks? 3 for danger inside, Mara said. 2 and scrape for hidden passage. 1 long for fire. No, Flavia said. Mara looked at her. Grayspire listens. Make them uneven. 2, pause. 1, scrape. Something nervous men cannot guess while running. Mara considered it, then nodded. The women watched that nod as if it were another kind of permission. Hidden blades came next, not in obvious places, not under pillows men would toss first. Sabine suggested flower jars. Elise suggested beneath loose hearth bricks. Branka suggested inside every boot. That is how you cut your own foot, Nessa said. Only if you lack discipline. You lack toes already? I lack patience. The hall loosened another notch. Flavia marked safe rooms last. No room locks from only the outside, she said. Ever. A hush touched the hall. She did not explain. She did not need to. Inside latch. Outside release. 2 ways out if there is stone enough. If not, it is not a safe room. It is a prettier cage. Nessa wrote it down. The seamstress with the bandaged wrist raised a hand. I can stitch signal cords into blankets, different knots, for anyone who cannot read. Good, Flavia said. The woman blinked at the praise, then bent over the map with sudden purpose. Jessa, from the laundry, her swollen fingers wrapped in cloth, began tearing strips for markers. Lyra held the basket. Sabine took names. Mara assigned watches, but the watches were argued over, corrected, strengthened. It stopped being Riven's sanctuary for a little while. It became theirs. That was when Celeste entered. The hall went cold. Elise stood behind her, one hand near a knife. Celeste's shoulder was bound, her red gold hair braided loosely to one side where Cassian had cut it. She looked at no one at first. Then she lifted her face. I opened the gate, she said. No one moved. I carried the letters. I read them. I believed them because I wanted to. Her breath caught once, but she did not hide behind tears. I wanted him to choose me. Grayspire knew that before I did. Branka's expression was merciless, and women died for it. Yes, Celeste said. Do you want forgiveness? No. That answer changed the room more than an apology would have. Celeste's hands curled at her sides. I want to tell you everything I remember. Where the letters were left, what they smelled like, which nights they came. Use me where you can watch me. Flavia studied her. There was no forgiveness in the look, but there was no cruelty either. Truth first, Flavia said. Anything else comes later. Celeste nodded. Before she could speak again, a scream split the hall. Everyone turned. It came from below, from the old storage passage. Mara was first through the doors. Flavia followed, ignoring the hot pull in her side. Sabine came with the cleaver, Branca with the spear. Nessa cursed behind them and came anyway. The lower passage smelled of lamp oil, damp stone, and black wax. They found Jessa near the storage arch. The strips of cloth she had been carrying were scattered across the floor like torn signal flags. Her mouth had been sealed shut with black wax. Pinned to her chest was a folded message. Mara crouched, but did not touch it yet. Flavia stood over the body, every careful piece of the meeting turning to iron inside her. Riven reached the passage entrance behind them. For once, the women did not part. Mara lifted the note and read the words aloud. Riven still chooses slowly. Let us teach him urgency.
Riven still chooses slowly. Let us teach him urgency. The words did not belong in Jessa's blood. They did not belong pinned to a woman who had spent the evening tearing cloth for signal knots because she wanted frightened girls to know where to run. Mara held the note between two fingers. Riven stood behind the women, blocking the passage, still as a carved thing, but I could feel the violence gathering in him. Not wild. Worse. Controlled. Do not touch the wax, Nessa said, voice like a blade dragged over stone. No one did. Jessa's mouth was sealed shut with black wax, pressed cruelly smooth. Her swollen fingers curled against the floor, as if she had tried to claw the message away before she died. Lyra made a broken sound behind me. I turned before anyone else could. I caught her by the shoulders and held her still. Look at me, I said. Her eyes were wide, too young, too full. I saw her, she whispered. She was just in the hall. She was holding the basket. I know. She was... Breathe. I can't. Yes, you can. Count the stones behind me. She shook her head. Count them, Lyra. Her gaze jerked past me. 1. Again. 1, 2, 3. Good. It was not comfort. Comfort felt too soft for that passage, too useless beside Jessa's ruined mouth. But counting gave Lyra something to do other than collapse, and sometimes that was the only mercy worth trusting. Nessa saw. So did Riven. I did not look at him. Mara crouched beside Jessa. Same wax. Same hand? Riven asked. Likely. His voice dropped lower. Clear the passage. No, Branca said. Everyone looked at her. She stood with both hands wrapped around her spear, grief sharpening every line of her face. You do not get to send us away from our dead. Riven's jaw tightened. For a moment I saw it there, the urge to command, the old instinct, the Alpha's answer to chaos. Make them move. Make them obey. Make fear simple. Then his eyes met mine. He said nothing. The pressure in the air eased. Then stay, he said, but give Nessa room. Branca nodded once, as if he had passed some test she had not told him she was setting. Nessa knelt. The rest of us stood witness while she broke the wax from Jessa's mouth with careful fingers, and a fury so cold it looked almost holy. By dawn, the sanctuary had stopped pretending shock was useful. Jessa was wrapped in clean linen and carried to the old ash grove beyond the north wall. The women went in groups of 4, armed, silent. No songs, no prayers from pack books written by men who called us property. Sabine placed a kitchen knife on Jessa's shroud. For the road, she said. Branca added, and for anyone foolish enough to meet her there. That earned the smallest breath of laughter from someone. It hurt to hear. It helped too. When we returned, Riven had Grey Spire's letter spread across the council table. Mara stood on one side, Nessa on the other. The words looked uglier by daylight. No Alpha may shelter unmarked property. Riven had read that line too many times. I knew because his face had become empty in that deliberate way men used when they were hiding from themselves. "You are thinking about it," I said. His eyes lifted. Mara went still. Nessa did not move at all, which meant she already knew. Riven folded the letter. "Thinking is not doing." "That depends on the man." "Flavia." "No." I stepped closer to the table. "Say it. Let us not dress the collar in silk." He did not answer, so I answered for him. "If you mark me, Greyspire loses its legal claim." Mara's mouth tightened. Nessa's eyes closed briefly. Riven's voice was quiet. "Only if you consented." I laughed once. It was a harsh little sound, and no one in the room mistook it for humour. Consent under threat of invasion, consent with dead women still warm in the ground, consent while surrounding packs sharpen their laws into spears. I leaned both hands on the table. "Is that what we are calling choice now?" His expression broke only at the edges. "I would not force you." "I know." That struck him harder than the accusation. "Very well. Let it." "That is what makes it dangerous," I said. "If you were Cassian, this would be easy. If you were Marius, I could hate you cleanly. But you would stand there bleeding guilt and call ownership protection because it might keep me alive." Riven stepped back as if the words had weight. I followed. "This is how it starts, isn't it?" My voice lowered, not with cruelty, with a man deciding ownership is mercy. Silence. Mara looked away first. Nessa did not. Riven stared at me, and for one terrible breath I saw the war inside him, the need to protect, the hunger to end the threat, the old oath waiting like a door he had sworn not to open. Then he stepped back again. "Not far. Enough." "You are right," he said. I hated how badly I needed him to be. The room exhaled. But Greyspire's parchment remained on the table, patient as a trap. "They will still come," Mara said. "Yes," I said, "but not for unmarked property." Nessa's eyes sharpened. "What are you thinking?" A third answer. Riven's gaze fixed on me. I touched the old scar at the base of my throat, the one Greyspire's collar had left after they dragged me from my father's house and sold my name like deck grain. I had hated that scar so long it had begun to feel like part of my anger. No more. "They want a mark," I said. "Then I will give them one." Riven's voice went rough. "No." I looked at him. He stopped. "Good." "Not yours," I said. "Not any alphas." Nessa understood first. Her mouth curved, not kindly, proudly. A self-claiming. Mara's brows drew together. "Old law?" "Older than pack law," Nessa said, "and hated by every alpha who ever wanted obedience tidy." A slow heat moved through my chest. Fear, maybe. Or fury, learning ceremony. "We do it before witnesses," I said. "Women only if that is enough." Riven said, "It will be stronger if an alpha witnesses and does not claim." I looked at him. He held my gaze. "No command," he said. "No touch unless asked. No mark from me." Nessa nodded. "Then we do it before moonrise." The hearth ash was still warm when they gathered in the yard. Every woman came. Some leaned on crutches, some carried blades. Celeste stood near the back, bandaged and watchful, her face drawn tight with guilt she no longer tried to make pretty. Lyra stood beside Sabine, counting under her breath. Branca planted herself near the front like anyone who objected would have to go through her, and preferably suffer for it. Nessa mixed the ink in a shallow bone bowl. Hearth ash, crushed bitterroot, healing oil, a drop of my blood. "Last chance to faint," she said. "I would rather die of spite. Spite has kept worse women standing." I unfastened the top of my blouse and pulled the cloth aside enough to bear the collar scar. The yard quieted. Not because skin shocked them. Because every woman there knew what a scar like that meant. Riven stood several paces away, hands at his sides. His face was locked down, but his eyes were not. They stayed on mine, not on the exposed wound, not on the place another man's law had once sat. Nessa lifted the small blade. Permission? The word entered me strangely. Not soft. Powerful. Yes, I said. The cut burned. Small, clean, deliberate. Nessa opened the old collar scar just enough for blood to bead along it. I did not flinch. I almost did when she pressed the ink and ash into the wound. Pain flashed hot and bright. My knees threatened betrayal. I held. Sabine whispered, "Stand, girl." Branka growled, "She is standing." The ink settled into the scar like night taking root. Nessa stepped back. "Speak." My mouth was dry. For once, no clever answer waited. Only truth. "I am Flavia Underwood," I said, voice carrying across the yard. "Sold by debt. Rejected by Greyspire. Hunted by men who mistook survival for vacancy." The women watched. Riven watched. I belong to no pack that bartered me, no man who refused me, no alpha who shelters me, no law that names my body property. My throat tightened. I forced the next words out anyway. I claimed myself. The yard was silent. Then Nessa said, "Witness." Riven moved. A ripple passed through the women as he came forward. He stopped before me. Then Riven, rogue alpha, oathbreaker, builder of walls and keeper of too many graves, lowered himself to one knee. Not to claim, not to command, to witness. His voice was low, but every stone seemed to carry it. "I witness Flavia Underwood as her own." For a heartbeat, no one breathed. Then Mara said, "I witness Flavia Underwood as her own." Nessa followed, "I witness." Sabine, Branka, Lyra, voice shaking but clear. Celeste, barely above a whisper. Then all of them. "I witness Flavia Underwood as her own." The words struck harder than any hand. Something rose behind my eyes, hot and humiliating. I did not let it fall. Almost was enough. Riven lifted his head, and behind him, one of the guards moved. Not wrong at first, just too smooth. The man who had patched the east hinge after the breach. Garen, quiet, broad, smelling of iron and smoke. Lyra's breath caught. "Rain and iron," she whispered. Mara turned. Too late. Garen's face changed as he drew the blade, not into rage, into recognition, as if he had finally removed a mask worn too long. The dagger was black along the edge. Wolfsbane. Riven rose, but poison and injury had already made him slower than his legend. Garen smiled at him. "Siren begged too," he said. "He did not kneel then." Then he drove the blade into Riven's side. The blade went in with a sound no ritual should have carried. Riven's breath was cut off. The oath witness words were still hanging between us when Garen twisted the wolfsbane dagger deeper and smiled like a man praying. For one heartbeat I understood the traitor's cruelty. He had not wanted Riven dead first. He wanted him desperately. "Mara!" I shouted. She moved as if my voice had struck flint. Garen ripped the blade free and ducked Riven's collapsing grip, but Mara slammed him sideways across the ritual stones. His shoulder cracked against the well curb. He laughed. "Choose fast, Oathbreaker," he said. Then he drove his bloody palm against a carved stone below the well. A groan answered from beneath the yard. Not the gate. Under us. The ground near the old storage steps split open, revealing a stair throat packed with smoke and iron. Greyspire men surged up from the dark. The sanctuary did not scream long. That was the difference. Fear came, of course it came. But behind fear came the plan we had made with Jessa's cloth strips still scattered in memory. 2, pause, 1, scrape, I yelled. Lyra seized the iron rod beside the bellpost and struck the signal crooked and hard. 2, pause. One. Scrape. The sound shivered through the stone. Sabine grabbed the youngest girls by their collars. "Kitchen route, now! If you trip, crawl." Branka shoved a spear into a limping woman's hands, pointy end toward men, not memories. Mara met the first Greyspire soldier at the passage mouth and opened him from hip to throat. Elise was beside her a breath later, one eye swollen, teeth bared in a grin that had nothing to do with joy. Nessa dropped to Riven's side. "Do not die dramatically," she snapped at him. "I lack time for male theatre." Riven was on one knee, blood soaking his shirt, wolfsbane already burning through him. His eyes were black with pain and something older. Power. I felt it before I saw it. The air tightened against my skin. Women faltered. Greyspire men faltered too. Even Garen, crawling toward the open passage, turned his head with reverence shining sickly in his face. "There," he whispered. "There he is." Riven's mouth parted. The command gathered. Not the shadow from the long hall, not the sharp push that had forced my body down and saved my life while taking my choice. This was deeper. A storm with teeth. If he released it, everyone in the yard would kneel. Greyspire, Sanctuary, me. He could win. Seren had died beneath a victory like that. I crossed the space between us before thought could make me wise. I gripped his blood-wet shirt in both fists and forced his gaze to mine. No. His eyes burned. "Flavia," he said, and my name sounded dragged through poison. "If you choose power now," I said, "you lose me before you ever had me." Something in him recoiled. Not from the words. From the truth. The pressure in the yard snapped back so suddenly, several women stumbled. Riven bowed over the wound, teeth clenched hard enough to break. Garen screamed, furious. "Coward!" Mara's blade answered, carving across his thigh. He vanished backward into smoke before she could finish him. "Seal the passage!" she shouted. "Can't!" Tobin called from the far side. Blood ran down his temple, but his hands were on the mechanism. "It has been wedged open." "Then make it expensive," Branka growled. The yard became a butcher's prayer. No clean lines, no heroic songs, only women using every ugly lesson men had taught them and returning it with interest. Sabine shoved 3 girls through the bathhouse drain and slapped the last one when panic made her freeze. "Breathe later." Celeste, still bandaged, stood near the healer's steps with a fallen dagger in hand. A Greyspire man recognized her and grinned. "The traitor came home," he said. Celeste waited until he reached for her. Then she drove the dagger under his chin with both hands. "No," she whispered as he dropped. "I didn't. I saw it all in pieces while moving. The seamstress cutting signal cords free so women could follow knots through smoke. Lyra crawling under a bench to pull a child out by the ankle. Nessa packing bitterroot into Riven's wound while refusing to let him close his eyes. Mara fighting like a locked door made flesh. And Riven on the stones, not commanding. Choosing pain. Choosing us. It should have been enough. It was not. A horn sounded beyond the east gate. The damaged hinges burst inward. Cassian Vale walked through the smoke as if the sanctuary had opened just for him. His hair was tied back with Greyspire silver. Blood marked one side of his jaw, not his own. His eyes found me immediately, and the old disgust in them had a new ornament. Triumph. "Self-claimed," he called. "How quaint." I lifted Mara's spare knife from the ground. My fresh mark burned at my throat. Ink, ash, blood. Mine. "Rejected and still obsessed," I said. "How embarrassing." His smile twitched. Good. Cassian never could bear being made small. He lunged. I did not meet him prettily. Greyspire taught ceremony, the streets taught survival. I threw ash from the trampled ritual bowl into his eyes and cut across his ribs when he blinked. He hissed, stumbling. For one hot breath I believed I could end it. Then his voice dropped. Not Alpha Command, not Riven's terrible weight. Something more intimate and fouler. Rejected, Cassian said. The word hooked into the scar no one could see. Pain split through me. Not heartbreak, never that. I would not grant him even the dignity of having broken my heart. It was a chain yanked through an old ritual wound, the ceremony where he cast me off, the pack watching, my name stripped from future and value in the same breath. Some thread of it remained, buried where pride could not cut it free. Cassian knew exactly where to pull. My knees buckled. I caught myself on one hand. He kicked the knife away and seized my hair, forcing my head back. Around us, women were still moving. Through smoke breaks, through hidden side doors, through safe rooms that opened from both sides, because no one here would be trapped in a prettier cage again. If I fought him here, Greyspire would close around them. If I kept him busy, archers would fire into the bathhouse mouth. If Riven commanded, he might save me. And lose himself. Riven saw Cassian's hand on me. The air tightened again. Even poisoned, even half collapsed, he reached for that old darkness because my body was in another man's grip. I turned my head as far as Cassian's hold allowed. Riven's eyes locked on mine. Don't, I said. One word. No plea. A command of my own. Riven froze. His hand trembled against the stone. Blood slipped between his fingers. The power strained around him, hungry and ready. Then he let it go. He obeyed me. Cassian laughed softly near my ear. Touching. I drove my elbow into his wound. He grunted and tightened his grip until stars sparked at the edges of my sight. Enough. Behind him, Sabine disappeared through the smoke with Lyra and the last of the girls. Branka was dragging an injured woman under one arm while stabbing with the other. Celeste helped Nessa brace Riven, though every step cost her. They were alive. That had to matter more than my pride. I stopped fighting. Not surrender. Never that. Calculation. Cassian felt it and mistook it for defeat. Men like him often survived by misreading women at the exact moment women became most dangerous. He hauled me toward the broken gate. Mara saw and tried to cut through, but 3 Greyspire soldiers crashed between us. Flavia! Hold the passage, I shouted back. Riven tried to rise. He failed. Then he did the worst thing he could have done. He crawled. One hand, then the other, dragging his poisoned body across the stones through his own blood. My chest hurt worse than the rejection bond. I looked back once. Not soft. Not forgiving. Not owned. Changed. Keep them alive, I said. Riven's face twisted, as if the words had gone in deeper than Garen's blade. Cassian yanked me through the ruined gate and into the trees beyond the sanctuary. Smoke swallowed the yard behind us. The uneven signal still rang faintly through stone and fire. 2. Pause. 1. Scrape. He forced me down the old road with Greyspire men closing around us. You still think this began with your father's debt? Cassian murmured. I said nothing. His mouth brushed near my ear, pleased by his own cruelty. Marius never sold you because of debt, Flavia. I went still. Cassian smiled. He sold you because Riven would come for you. And in the dark beyond the sanctuary, I finally understood I had never been the payment. I had been the bait.
In a world that tells us no, we keep on running, hearts aglow. Moments stolen, in secret we meet. Our love is quiet, but it's all we need.